Hey, welcome. This is the second installment in our series, Moving Your Family Forward. And if you weren't able to see the first one, I can recap very quickly. We realized that because of the unique situation with COVID-19 and the stay-at-home orders, it has created a lot of unusual circumstances for families. And it has put stress and strain on those relationships. Whether it be a marriage situation or parenting, or if you're living with extended family, everybody's spending a lot more time together. And in some ways that's great. In some ways it also represents a challenge. And when you add to it the uncertainty around, are the kids going back to school? What's happening at work? What about finances? What about trying to share space with everyone in the house all at once? No matter the situation, whether your schedule hasn't changed at all or it's changed completely, the outside tensions can put extra stress and strain on relationships. So we wanted to take a few moments and talk about the marriage relationship in this episode. And so a couple of things I want to share with you. If you're doing well in your marriage relationship, great. I am so glad to hear that. And I would encourage you to try to be an encouragement to other couples as you run across them. I know your contact is limited, but you can encourage people by phone or email or text. If you do happen to see somebody out and about, you can stay the appropriate distance apart, but check on them. How are they doing? How's their family? What's happening in their world? Try to be an encouragement. If you're like most of us and you're feeling some stress and strain, I want to give you a couple of quick tips, and then I want to point you to something that I think could be very meaningful for you. The first one is, and you already know this, and I know you know this, but sometimes when we get strained, we forget the basics. Simple things like taking care of your physical health is huge. If you're eating well, if you're exercising, and maybe most important of all is, are you getting enough sleep? Because you know what happens? I love the quote by Vince Lombardi. He talked about fatigue. He said, fatigue makes cowards of us all. You know what else fatigue does? Fatigue, unfortunately, helps us make bad decisions, makes us cranky, and gets us to be short-sighted. And so a lot of times, it's not even your spouse that's on your nerves. You're just really tired. And unfortunately, they happen to be there and they happen to be around, and then a negative exchange happens or a fight starts. And it really isn't about anything. It's just because you're tired. And so it's critically important, as best you can, take care of yourself. Get some exercise, eat well, and try to make sure you're getting enough sleep. Those are pretty simple things, I know, but they make a big difference. The other thing you have to understand is fights are coming. They're going to happen. It's okay. We all argue. I've been married for 27 years. I can't count how many arguments we've had. It happens. The real question is, when the fight happens, are you going to fight with your spouse or for your spouse? And it may seem like a small difference, it's just one word, but it's a huge difference. If you're fighting with your spouse, you're fighting to win, to get your way, to get what you want, to make sure things happen the way you want them to be. If you're fighting for your spouse, you may be disagreeing about something, but you're working hard to get on the same page with each other, even if it is emotional, even if it is upsetting in the moment. What is your ultimate goal? Makes a huge difference. And I want to share with you two magic phrases that can make a big, big difference, even in the middle of a fight. Now, if you recognize that your spouse is stressed, that they're tired, they've had a rough day or a rough morning or things aren't going well, and you may be in that same boat, but let me encourage you. Try to be the first one to ask, how can I help you today? How can I help you today? You'd be amazed at how it will really block any kind of fight from even happening. And I know you may be thinking, but I'm the one that needs help. I'm the one that's stressed. Be the first one to ask. And I guarantee you, your spouse will respond well. It'll change the dynamic and the tone for the whole day. So if you see your husband or your wife is struggling, just ask them a simple question. How can I help you today? But then if the fight does come, because they do, and it happens to every one of us, when the fight comes, there's one other question I want you to ask. And I got to be honest, I stole this from a pastor in Georgia named Andy Stanley, but I thought it was such a great question. I've used it right in the middle of fights with Donna and I, and sometimes we laugh about it. Other times it just makes us pause, but it always changes the direction, especially when things are headed in a negative way and it feels like somebody's going to get hurt, somebody's going to get mad. It's a very simple statement. And it really consists of you pausing and saying, you know, a big part of the problem is I'm not getting my way. I'm not getting what I want. And it sounds silly, and especially in the middle of a fight when you say it, I'm not getting my way. I'm not getting what I want. It reminds us that we're all apt to act like 4-year-olds sometimes. Sometimes the only reason we're fighting is because we're being selfish. And when we put that pause on it and just admit that and say it out loud, you know what a big part of the problem is? I'm not getting my way. Well, all of a sudden, it kind of puts things in context and can help reduce the temperature. Because like I said, half the time you may end up laughing about it. And it's also a great key and code word for you and your spouse to use to recognize, okay, we need to put a pause on things. We're getting too upset, we're getting too worked up. We need to relax the situation. So those are some real practical things I encourage you to do. I've used them, I've tried them, they've worked for us. I think they'll work for you too. The other recommendation I would give you, and we'll put this link in the post and in the emails that we send out, but we did an episode called Fight Club. It was episode 2 of our Crazy Normal Family series. And I would encourage you to watch Fight Club because it talks about this. How do we fight with our families and how do we do it in a positive and productive way instead of letting it destroy things? So if you can, go and watch that whole message. If you can't, you just don't have time, but you got like 6-8 minutes, then go and watch that video called Fight Club from about the 18-minute mark. And I think it'll be helpful to you. Thanks. We're in this with you. We love you. We love your family, and we want to see your family move forward. Thanks for taking the time to watch today.